The truth of the matter is that the Peter Obi presidential bid is really not about Peter Obi. Peter Obi himself cannot come out and tell people that he's not running again. He can't withdraw from this race. It's not about Peter Obi. Peter Obi is merely the totem. A people have sat back for a long season, been held down, knocked back every time they've attempted to get up. A lot of them walked away from the process and became disconnected from that process, disavowed any involvement with this. They walked away.
Since 2022, when Peter Obi declared to run for president, the establishment has found it very difficult. Difficult to understand, difficult to contain, difficult to defeat. And the reason is simple. Peter Obi's support is not like the normal support for other politicians in Nigeria. You see, in our politics, the usual pattern is clear. A politician wakes up one day and decides he wants to be president. He announces his ambition, forms committees, and begins to call on the masses to support him. And the people, having seen this script too many times, don't see it as their project. They see it as his project. They are helping him to achieve his dream. So naturally, that kind of support becomes transactional. In most cases, the people ask, "What will you give us?" They wait for handouts. They expect to be mobilized. They ask for transport money before attending rallies. That's the reality of Nigerian politics. Support is often bought, not earned. It's transactional, not built on conviction. But when Peter Obi entered the scene in 2022, something changed. The old political order couldn't explain it. Because for the first time in modern Nigerian history, the people didn't see a man running for himself. They saw a man running for them. Peter Obi didn't come begging people to support his ambition. The people themselves stood up and said, "This is our own project. We are running for president through him." And that is where the game changed. The Obidient movement didn't wait for funding. They didn't wait for direction. They didn't wait for permission. They took ownership, total ownership of the dream. You saw people printing their own posters with their own money, organizing rallies with no central command, designing banners, t-shirts and jingles without waiting for any campaign office. For the first time, politics looked like passion, not business. Students, artisans, traders, tech workers, people who had never cared about politics before suddenly began to say, "We must be part of this change." And that's what the establishment couldn't handle. They were used to dealing with politicians who controlled their supporters through money. They were used to shutting down movements by cutting off funding. But this time, it didn't work. Because you can't cut off what you didn't create. You can't silence what you didn't start. You can't stop a wave that is flowing from the hearts of the people. The Obidient movement is organic, self-sustaining. Even when they tried to mock it as social media noise, it refused to fade. When they tried to intimidate, it refused to bow. When they tried to infiltrate it, it refused to scatter. Because the truth is this: Obedients don't see themselves as followers of a politician. They see themselves as participants in a mission. They are not working for Peter Obi, they are working with him and for themselves. That is why, while other politicians must constantly mobilize supporters, Peter Obi's supporters mobilize themselves. They contribute money, they fund logistics, they volunteer time and creativity. You don't find that kind of commitment in a transactional system. You find it only in movements built on belief. This is what the establishment has found most difficult. They can't bribe this kind of support. They can't threaten it. They can't divide it easily. Because it's not built on tribe or religion, it's built on shared frustration, shared hope, and shared determination. For other politicians, the crowd comes because of food and transport fare. For Peter Obi, the crowd comes because of conviction. That's the difference. And when people act from conviction, they become unstoppable. That's why even after the election, the passion didn't die. The people didn't disappear. Instead, they became even more aware, more vocal, more politically conscious. The establishment thought it was about one election, but it turned out to be about a new national awakening. Because once people start seeing politics as their own project, everything changes. They stop waiting for politicians to save them. They start saving themselves. Peter Obi's campaign became a mirror of what is possible when citizens take ownership. It showed that leadership is not about titles, it's about teamwork between the leader and the led. So yes, since 2022, the establishment has found it very difficult. Difficult to understand how a man without billions on PR can inspire such loyalty. Difficult to accept that Nigerians can actually act without being paid. Difficult to comprehend that ordinary citizens can fuel a national movement out of pure belief. But that is exactly what happened. And that is why Peter Obi remains a threat to the old political order. Because he didn't just contest for power, he transferred power in spirit to the people. The Obidient movement has redefined what it means to support a candidate. It's no longer about helping him win. It's about helping ourselves rise. When the people see their candidate as their collective voice, you can't silence that voice. When they see the race as their personal mission, you can't end that mission with one election. That's the reason the system keeps struggling. They're not fighting a man. They are fighting millions of minds that have awakened. Peter Obi's supporters didn't just campaign for him, they discovered themselves through him. And that kind of discovery doesn't fade away, it grows. Since 2022, the establishment has found it very difficult. And for as long as Nigerians continue to believe that leadership can be honest, decent, and people-driven, they will keep finding it difficult. Because this time, it is not about his ambition, it is about our future. This is the same spirit we carry into 2027.
The truth of the matter is that the Peter Obi presidential bid is really not about Peter Obi. Peter Obi himself cannot come out and tell people that he's not running again. He can't withdraw from this race. It's not about Peter Obi. Peter Obi is merely the totem. A people have sat back for a long season, been held down, knocked back every time they've attempted to get up. A lot of them walked away from the process and became disconnected from that process, disavowed any involvement with this. They walked away.